So hi everyone, my name is Lavanya Shankar. I am the team member at the Legal Amity, and today's Insider Info series is going to introduce Louise Turner. So we're on a new episode today of Insider Info series with the Legal Amity, and going to be interviewing Louise Turner today, who is a membership development manager at the Chartered Institute of Legal Executives. So thank you so much, Louise, for joining us today. We really appreciate the fact that you've taken out time to speak to us today on a working day specifically. So thank you so much for that. And we would, if it's possible, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, of course. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be joining you today. So yes, my name is Louise Turner and I am the Membership Development Manager at the Chartered Institute of Legal Executives. And I think from now on in, we'll call it CILEx because it makes things a lot easier. It's a bit of a mouthful otherwise. So before I joined to work at CILEx as their membership development manager, I actually was a lawyer and I used to practice criminal defence work. I qualified as an accredited police station representative back in 2006. So I was out representing clients at the police station at all sorts of silly hours of the night and into the early hours of the morning. And then I completed the whole CILEx Qualification route and I qualified as a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Legal Executives in 2008. I then further qualified because I just loved studying at that stage. I was very keen as a Chartered Legal Executive Advocate in criminal proceedings, and that was in 2011. And then just to finish it off, I accredited as a duty advocate through the Law Society Criminal Litigation Scheme in 2013, which allowed me to join the duty rotas at my local magistrates' courts and police stations, so I could be the duty advocate for anybody who needed my legal advice. So as I said, I've always worked in criminal defence work. I've done legal aid and private work. And dealt with criminal investigations at the police station through to appearing on behalf of clients in the magistrates' court and working closely with counsel to prepare matters for trial in the Crown Court. I think I've had a really interesting and varied career in criminal law, and I've dealt with all sorts of different cases, from simple shoplifting cases right through to murder cases. So now I bring all of my experience that I've gained in the law together with my business experience, and I work for CILEx, helping other members to achieve their own goals in their CILEx careers, really. So that's my little introduction, just so you know a bit more about me before we start.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Louise. So we will now delve into the questions. So why did you choose to practice criminal law over sort of other legal practice areas?
I suppose I chose to practice in criminal defence work because when I left school, my initial thoughts were to join the police force. So this was the reason, in fact, why I studied initially a BTEC National Diploma in Public Services at college after I left school, having sat my GCSEs. It was a 2-year course which I completed, but then I got my first full-time job as a legal aid and licensing clerk in my local magistrates' court. The job to me at that time looked interesting, and I actually thought it might help me to understand the legal system, which may come in handy if I did apply later to join the police. So I started my job at the magistrates' court, and it was here really that I learnt a lot about how to deal with members of the public from all walks of life, as I worked there in a public-facing role, which included manning the front desk, where I would be processing fines and maintenance payments, the sorts of payments people aren't always happy to be making, but have to. So it was a really good experience, and I enjoyed meeting different people. And anyone who knows me will know I am the sort of person who will talk to anyone. I just enjoy passing the time, interacting with people, So if you ever spot me on a train or waiting in a queue, you will see me striking up a conversation with someone, because I just talk a lot and I like meeting people. So whilst working at the Magistrates Court, I got to learn a lot about what lawyers do, and I met a lot of them. And one day a partner from a local law firm asked me if I wanted to go and work for him as his legal secretary. I was only 19 at that point, and I thought, that sounded quite interesting. So I just said yes, and off I went to work at his firm. Well, it turned out I was actually a useless legal secretary. I couldn't really type fast enough, and I had absolutely no idea how to work the dictation machine. And in fact, I used to play all the dictation back out loud without even realising. And I think the girls I shared the office with found it absolutely hilarious that the firm had employed someone as a legal secretary who didn't have the first clue what she was doing. But I was really good at talking with clients and they liked me. So it was proposed that I would change roles and become a Crown Court caseworker in the criminal department.
Wow.
And this is where it all started, really. So it was at this stage that I began my studies with CILEx to become a chartered legal executive lawyer. And my firm financially supported me in those studies. So I was incredibly lucky that they saw something in me that they thought, it was worth them supporting me with. So in answer to your question, why did I choose crime? Well, I'm not entirely sure I did. And maybe it was more of a case that it chose me, actually, in the end.
That's a nice way of putting it, yeah. Perfect. And so what kind of made you choose the CILEx qualification route rather than the sort of traditional route of being a solicitor or a barrister doing the LPC or the BPTC, and choosing the CILEx route?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I never actually wanted to go to university. I just didn't think that I would be disciplined enough to stay away from home and study full time, if I'm being honest. I was also more interested in getting out and earning money straight away. So to be able to study to become a lawyer whilst working in a firm and being paid a salary, that was just the perfect solution for me. Saying this now, though, does make me slightly chuckle, because in reality, I had to be extremely disciplined with my studies, because if I'd gone to university, maybe I wouldn't have been working alongside my studies, I don't know. But I was studying law through CILEx whilst I was running a caseload at the firm I was working at, and I was living away from home because I was able to afford to rent my first flat. So it definitely was not the easy route to take.
Imagine, yeah.
It was hard work, but I was prepared to put in the work to get the result that I wanted. And I also found the CILEX route to be more flexible in terms of being able to take a break from my studies when I needed to, because with CILEX you study units of law as you work your way through the qualification and the various grades of membership. So I could go as fast or as slow as I wanted with my studies. And I remember about halfway through, I had a bit of a breakup with a boyfriend, and I took time out. And, in reality, at that point, I wouldn't have passed an exam anyway. So it was good that I could sort of, take stock, sort my life out, my personal life out, and then come back to it. I think I went back to it, 6-12 months later. Which was really useful for me at that time. And in the end, it took me about 6 years to complete my studies with CILEX. So still did it in good time, I think.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it is quite hard to obviously, sometimes when you've got so many things buzzing around, it's very hard to obviously keep focus sometimes. And sometimes it's really important to take a step back and sort of give yourself a bit of time and actually absorb everything in, really. So yeah, that's amazing. What are the sort of key benefits would you say CILEX actually offers through this route? I mean, I know you mentioned flexibility as one of them, but what are the sort of other benefits that CILEX actually helps in terms of route wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think the benefits to the Cilex route when compared to the other more traditional routes to study law, i.e. the solicitor or barrister routes, are that you can earn as you learn. So as I've already pointed out, it's more cost effective also than the other routes. And in my case, my employer supported my studies financially. So I came out without any student debt whatsoever, which I think is quite an achievement actually, because if I had gone down routes, I know I would have come out with quite a large student debt, which I probably now would still be paying off. So I'm very grateful for that I was financially supported. My younger sister, incidentally, on the other hand, did study to become a solicitor via the traditional university law degree LPC route, did come out with significant student debt. And when she's reflected on the route that she took, and thought about which route might have been better, she can see why so many students take the Cilex route now, because you're less likely to come out with that student debt, which with it being so difficult now to get your first step on the property ladder and just earning a decent wage, you don't really want a student debt on top of all of that, do you? So I think that's a major benefit to studying to become a lawyer through the Cilex route. It also doesn't require you to secure a training contract like the traditional solicitor route does. So it's more flexible in terms of how you can evidence that you have the appropriate work-based learning in order to qualify. So you do still need to be in qualifying employment. So that is to say, you need to be in a legal role where you're completing work of a wholly legal nature for at least 20 hours of your working week every week. But you don't need to have a firm commit to giving you a training contract for that 2 years. So you could be working in all sorts of roles within a law firm. And as long as you are doing work that is of a wholly legal nature, so it's not purely an admin role in a firm, then you can qualify with Cilex. So it is a lot more flexible in that regard as well. And I think with the traditional route, you're in some ways putting all your eggs in one basket from the off. So in terms of racking up that student debt and relying on the fact that you will need to secure a training contract before you can ultimately qualify as a solicitor, I just think that's quite a big risk in today's sort of world. So I actually think in a way Cilex is a safer option for a student if they're thinking, well, yeah, I do want to be a lawyer, but I don't really want to go to university and I don't want to get all that debt. So yeah, I feel there's a lot more opportunities studying with Cilex. And nowadays Cilex is extremely well known, and chartered legal executive lawyers are highly regarded in the legal services industry. We can attain practice rights that mean that we can do pretty much all that solicitors can do in practice. And so really the only difference is in the title. So for example, our members can also become judges if they want to. They could become coroners. You could do what I did and become an advocate and do advocacy in the courts. So I don't really feel that the CILEx qualification limits you in any way at all. It's simply a different title that you would have. And I never felt the title was important, to be honest with you. For me, it's about whether or not you are a good and competent lawyer. And that really is all that should matter to employers, firms and clients, really. So in my case, CILEx has opened up so many doors for me, and I've enjoyed 11-year career, I think it was, in criminal defence work, and now I work for CILEx as their membership development manager, supporting other CILEx members to get to where they want to be in their CILEx careers. So I will always have my CILEX Lawyer qualification, and so if I ever want to go back into practice, then I can. So that's another benefit, once you've completed the qualification, if you decide to have a career break or do something a bit different and you want to go back to it later, then you can.
Amazing. Thank you. Actually, that's the bit I'm dreading. I'm dreading of paying off my debt, my student debt. I mean, we're talking easily you know, 9 grand plus sort of 15 odd grand. You know, so it's quite a lot to pay off, which I'm dreading. And yeah, I mean, I think it's quite interesting to know that, you know, obviously you can become a judge as well through Cilex and also become a coroner as well. So I think that sort of extra avenues open as well, which is great.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think the flexibility of sort of studying and kind of working, or, you know, you can sort of fix it around your other commitments as well, which is great. And most importantly, you know, during the COVID sort of not season, it's going to be more than a season, but but yeah, you know, during this time, I mean, so much has changed. You know, some people have been furloughed. You know, training contracts sort of paused in between. Trainees having to do a sort of virtual training rather than in-person training. So loads of different things have changed due to COVID. So I think Cilex in that type of scenario would be a great option to pursue in this sort of time. So thank you for that insight. I thought leading on from that, a good question so that our viewers know, what sort of, I mean, how do you actually qualify as a Cilex lawyer? I thought that would be useful.
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to know, I'm guessing. So yeah, and just following on from our previous question, something I omitted to mention is that our members can also open their own firms now. So our regulator, CILEx Regulation, is able to regulate firms now, which are opened by Cilex lawyers. There are some additional qualifications that individual would need to do in terms of managing your own firm. But that's also possible. So, you know, historically, Cilex lawyers would have to work within a firm and be supervised by another lawyer, usually a solicitor or barrister. But that too has now changed, and our members can open their own firms. So, you know, there are a lot more options now for Cilex lawyers. But in terms of how to qualify, it is unique in that it enables those with a non-degree background to study law and qualify as a lawyer. So the entry requirements are very broad. So if you're a school leaver with GCSEs like I was when I started my Cilex studies all those years ago now, you can join, or if you're a law graduate, you can also join us via our graduate fast track route, which provides exemptions for the law units you've already studied as part of your degree. So the law units for Cilex are also embedded nowadays in some law degrees offered at particular universities. And I think that's something that you might have experience of, in that I think that Cilex law units were embedded in the law degree that you studied, weren't they?
Yeah, yes. They were very useful, I have to say.
Yeah, I think you know, universities too see the value in including those units within a student's law degree, so that, you know, you have more options as to how to qualify as a lawyer when you complete your degree. So there really is a route for everyone. And Cilex also offers training routes for legal apprentices, for which there would be government funding. So you can study Cilex qualifications in various ways. In terms of how you study the content of our qualifications, that is also very flexible. So it might be that you decide you want to study Cilex and go and have in-person lectures or tutorials. But that's not the only option, because you can also complete Cilex qualifications by distance learning, or even blended learning, which is a bit of each. So for me, I think my first half of my Cilex qualification, I did attend one of our training providers. It was set within a college, and I used to go for lectures. And then once I built my confidence in understanding how the Cilex qualification worked and its structure, I then decided for the second half of my qualification, my training, I would do that by distance learning, which I did through Cilex Law School. So, and that I found really useful, because I was working, I was really busy then in my firm, because I'd got a bit of experience behind me, so I had quite a busy caseload. So actually it was easier for me at that stage in my career to complete my studies by distance learning. So I did a bit of each and it worked for me. So it's very flexible, and I think that's why our membership is so diverse. Yeah, I think that's where I'll leave that question, because I think that the individual will need to decide, you know, what suits them study-wise. You know, would they like to go into a training provider and see someone in person and have lectures with a group of people, or would they prefer to complete their studies by distance learning? And CILEx has a number of training providers that deliver our qualifications throughout England and Wales. And we also have Cilex Law School that delivers our qualifications or training for our qualifications through distance learning. So there's loads of options for students to explore. And if anyone has any questions, having seen my interview, as to how they could qualify as a Cilex lawyer based on their own individual circumstances, then please do get in touch with us at Cilex, because we're always happy to talk to you about your own circumstances and where you would need to start our qualifications. And, you know, we can tell you, you know, how long that's going to take and what that's going to cost. So anyone who wants more information can email us at membership@cilex.org.uk, or even contact me directly, because I'm always really happy to talk the qualification through with anyone who wants to learn more about it. And my email address is louise.turner@cilex.org.uk.
Amazing. Thank you, Louise. So I think everyone has got a much better insight as to what Cilex actually entails. And, you know, I definitely have. I mean, obviously, I've done the academic bit, as Louise knows, but obviously, in terms of the practical, I kind of know now as to how to go further. And, you know, I feel that it's a much more flexible route, rather than sort of everyone having a panic attack about finding a training contract, as that's the usual hype that goes on. So yeah, so you know that there is obviously another alternative route out there, you know, Cilex, and an alternative option. So, you know, any other questions, as Louise said, feel free to contact Louise on her email address, and obviously the membership email address she's also mentioned. And I think that's about it, really. I was actually just to finish off, maybe any sort of particular tricks and tips, or whatever you call it, tips or tricks for these students about you know, there's not only sort of one avenue, but there are other avenues like Cilex that you can go through to reach the same destination of becoming a lawyer. So is there any particular tips you'd like to let everyone know?
Yeah, I mean, we have some really good resources on our website. So if you Google Cilex, you'll find some pages about Cilex study, and that gives you lots of information about all the different types of options. And I think there's also a free CV builder on there that we provide to students who are thinking, yeah, actually, I do want to go into law, and, you know, where do I start? I'm going to need a CV, because one of my first tips in ordinary circumstances, if we weren't in a pandemic, would be to go and get some work experience at a law firm, because I certainly thought it was very, very glamorous. And then I went to work in a law firm, and, you know, some bits of it are a bit glamorous, but ultimately it's a very, very interesting career. But I do think you need to go into it knowing exactly what is entailed before you sort of embark on it. So yeah, I mean, although we're in the middle of a pandemic and it's going to be difficult for you to obviously go into law firms, that doesn't stop you making connections with law firms. So, you know, make sure your LinkedIn profile is perfect and, you know, speaks to employers in the legal services industry. So tell them, what are your skills and experience so far, and what are you doing with your studies? You know, spend some time now on really getting that up to date, and obviously getting yourself a good CV, so when you do see legal jobs that are appealing to you, you've got that ready to fire off, because it is a case of, you know, who gets in first, and, you know, these opportunities are always very popular and that they will be highly competitive. So make sure that you set yourself apart from everybody else by doing other activities that might not be directly linked to the law, but help you to build your skills that you will need to be a lawyer. So things like, you know, you need to be great with your timekeeping and being productive. So, you know, just work on that for now whilst you're thinking about where to go next.
Amazing. So thank you so much, Louise, again. Really appreciate that you've taken up the time today and giving such useful tips and advice to all our students and grads who are, you know, obviously facing a challenge, especially during COVID. And, you know, there's so many opportunities, as Louise has said, you know, so many opportunities virtually. If you're not in person, then virtually. I mean, we're on Zoom right now. So, you know, Zoom, Teams, have coffee chats, you know, chat to professionals, you know, keep up to date with what other opportunities are available online. So that's the key, really. And yeah, thank you so much, Louise. And we look forward, everyone will look forward to viewing this recording afterwards.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.